The ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, its dark waters hiding secrets that could change the course of history. Beneath the surface, where sunlight never reached, a massive steel beast moved silently through the depths. Inside this nuclear submarine, Captain Sarah Chun stared at the sonar screen with growing concern. The enemy had been tracking them for 3 days, and now they believed she was finished, trapped, and ready to surrender. But what they didn't know was that Sarah had spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. What they couldn't see was the revolutionary technology hidden within her submarine's hull. What they failed to understand was that sometimes when everyone thinks you're beaten, that's precisely when you hold all the cards. This is the true story of how one woman's brilliant strategy and cutting-edge naval technology turned what seemed like certain defeat into one of the most stunning victories in modern submarine warfare. It's a tale of courage, intelligence, and the kind of split-second decisions that can change everything. The enemy thought Captain Sarah Chun was out of options. They were about to learn just how wrong they could be. Captain Sarah Chun pressed her ear against the cold metal wall of the USS Titanica, feeling the subtle vibrations that told her everything she needed to know about their pursuers. The nuclear submarine had been her home for the past 6 months, but never before had its steel walls felt so much like a prison. 3 enemy vessels circled above them like sharks sensing blood in the water. "Captain, they've got us completely surrounded," whispered Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, his voice barely audible in the red-lit control room. "Sonar shows their formation is tightening. They're moving into attack positions." Sarah nodded slowly, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed their dire situation. For 72 hours, they had been playing this deadly game of underwater hide and seek. The enemy fleet had been hunting them across the Pacific, using advanced tracking systems that seemed to predict their every move. No matter which direction they turned, no matter how deep they dove, the hunters stayed close behind. The mission had started so differently. 3 weeks ago, Sarah had received orders that would change everything. The USS Titanica was to transport Dr. Marcus Webb, a brilliant nuclear physicist, to a classified location in the South Pacific. Dr. Webb carried with him research data that could revolutionize submarine technology forever. The information was so sensitive that only 5 people in the entire world knew about its existence. The cargo we're carrying could shift the balance of naval power for the next 50 years, the Admiral had explained during their final briefing. "That's why we chose you, Captain Chun. Your record speaks for itself." Sarah remembered feeling proud in that moment. At 38, she was the youngest submarine captain in the fleet and the first woman to command a nuclear vessel of this class. She had earned her position through 15 years of exemplary service, including 3 tours in hostile waters where her quick thinking had saved countless lives. But now, as enemy sonar pings echoed through the water around them like a deadly heartbeat, Sarah wondered if this mission would be her last. The trouble had begun on day 12 of their journey. Dr. Webb had been working in his makeshift laboratory when the first alarm sounded. Unknown contacts approaching from the northeast, moving at high speed. Sarah had immediately ordered the submarine to go silent, shutting down all non-essential systems and dropping to a depth of 800 feet. "They found us too easily," Dr. Webb had said, his face pale with worry. "Someone leaked our route." Sarah had suspected as much. The enemy's tracking patterns were too precise, too coordinated. They weren't just hunting randomly. They knew exactly where to look. Somewhere in the chain of command, there was a traitor feeding information to hostile forces. The first attack came at dawn on day 14. Torpedoes screamed through the water, forcing Sarah to take the Titanica even deeper. They had managed to escape that initial assault, but it had cost them precious battery power and revealed their approximate position. From that moment on, the chase had been relentless. "Captain, we're running low on battery reserves," reported Chief Engineer Maria Santos. "At this depth and speed, we have maybe 18 hours before we'll need to surface." Surfacing meant certain death. The enemy fleet was waiting above them, ready to blow the Titanica out of the water the moment she broke the surface. Sarah's mind raced through their options, but every scenario led to the same conclusion. They were trapped. "There's something else, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez added quietly. "Intelligence suggests the enemy has deployed their new prototype tracking system. It uses a combination of thermal imaging and electromagnetic sensors that can penetrate our stealth coating." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean's cold embrace. She had heard rumors about this new technology, a revolutionary system that made traditional submarine stealth tactics obsolete. If the enemy really had deployed such a system, then the Titanica was fighting with outdated weapons against a far superior foe. In his laboratory, Dr. Webb continued working feverishly on his research, occasionally emerging to check on their situation. The data he carried wasn't just valuable. It was the key to developing countermeasures against the very tracking system that now hunted them. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. They carried the solution to their problem, but couldn't access it while under attack. "Captain, we need to make a decision," urged Commander Rodriguez. "We could try to make a run for friendly waters, but it would take at least 36 hours at maximum speed. Or we could attempt to fight our way out." Fighting seemed impossible. The Titanica carried advanced weapons, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Each enemy vessel was equipped with the latest anti-submarine warfare systems, and their coordinated attack patterns suggested highly experienced crews. Sarah looked around the control room at her crew of 43 men and women. They were among the best in the Navy, handpicked for this mission because of their exceptional skills and unwavering loyalty. But skill and loyalty might not be enough against the odds they faced. "There is another option," Dr. Webb said suddenly, emerging from his laboratory with an expression of desperate hope. "The research I'm carrying, it's not just theoretical data. I've been working on a practical application during our journey." "What kind of application?" Sarah asked. "A temporary stealth enhancement that could mask our signature for approximately 6 hours. It would require us to modify our hull plating and recalibrate our sonar systems, but it might give us the edge we need." Chief Santos shook her head. "Any hull modifications would require surfacing, Doctor. We'd be sitting ducks." "Not necessarily," Dr. Webb replied, his voice gaining confidence. "The modifications can be made to our outer hull using our maintenance robots. It would be dangerous work in these depths, but it's possible." Sarah weighed their options carefully. The maintenance robots were designed for emergency repairs, not complex modifications. The procedure would take hours to complete, during which time they would be vulnerable and running on reduced power. But if Dr. Webb's enhancement worked, it could give them the element of surprise they desperately needed. "How certain are you that this will work?" she asked the physicist. 70%, Dr. Webb admitted. "But, Captain, staying here guarantees our capture or destruction. This enhancement could allow us to slip past their sensors undetected." The enemy's sonar pings grew louder, more frequent. They were closing in, tightening their net around the Titanica like a noose. Sarah realized they had perhaps 2 hours before the enemy would be close enough to attack with certainty. "Do it," she decided. "Dr. Webb, prepare your modifications. Chief Santos, ready the maintenance robots. Everyone else, battle stations. We're going to give these hunters the surprise of their lives." As her crew sprang into action, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to attempt something that would either save their lives or doom them all. The enemy thought they had the Titanica trapped, outgunned, and defeated. They were about to discover that Captain Sarah Chun never surrendered without a fight. Outside the submarine, the maintenance robots began their delicate work, welding new components to the hull while enemy ships prowled overhead. Time was running out, but Sarah had learned long ago that sometimes the most desperate situations call for the most daring solutions. The real battle was about to begin. The maintenance robots worked like mechanical surgeons in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, their manipulator arms carefully attaching Dr. Webb's revolutionary devices to the Titanica's outer hull. Through the periscope monitor, Sarah watched the delicate operation while enemy sonar pulses grew stronger and more frequent above them. Robot Alpha has successfully installed the first resonance dampener, reported Chief Santos from her engineering station. Installing the second unit now. Dr. Webb stood beside Sarah, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the control room. Each dampener creates a localized field that disrupts electromagnetic scanning, he explained quietly. When combined with our existing stealth systems, they should render us nearly invisible to their new tracking technology. Should, Sarah repeated, emphasis on the word that carried so much uncertainty. Captain, I won't lie to you, Dr. Webb continued. This technology has never been tested under combat conditions. In laboratory simulations, it worked perfectly. But out here with the pressure, the electromagnetic interference from their sonar systems, the stress on our hull. I understand the risks, Doctor, Sarah interrupted gently. Right now, untested technology is our best hope. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez approached with an urgent expression. Captain, we're picking up increased chatter on enemy communications. They're coordinating something big. Best guess is they're planning a coordinated torpedo strike in approximately 90 minutes. Sarah nodded grimly. The enemy was losing patience with their cat and mouse game. Soon, they would saturate the area with torpedoes, hoping to force the Titanica to surface or destroy her outright. Either outcome will be fatal for everyone aboard. How much longer for the installation? She asked Chief Santos. 23 minutes for the remaining dampeners, then another 15 minutes for Dr. Webb to activate the system and run diagnostics. 40 minutes total. They would be cutting it close, but it was their only chance. Sarah watched the robotic arms continue their precise work, each movement bringing them closer to either salvation or disaster. As the installation progressed, Dr. Webb shared more details about his revolutionary research. The technology is based on metamaterial coatings that can bend electromagnetic waves around an object, he explained. In simple terms, we're creating a partial invisibility cloak for the submarine. Partial? Asked Lieutenant Rodriguez. The effect isn't perfect, Dr. Webb admitted. If they look directly at us with visual systems, they'll still see us. But their long-range sensors, their tracking computers, their thermal imaging, all of that should show empty water where we're actually located. Chief Santos looked up from her console. Doctor, what about our own systems? Will this affect our ability to see them? There will be some interference, Dr. Webb acknowledged. Our sonar resolution will be reduced by about 30% while the system is active. But that's a small price to pay for near invisibility. Sarah considered this trade-off. Reduced sensor capability would make navigation more difficult and could prevent them from detecting obstacles or threats until they were dangerously close. But if the alternative was certain destruction, the choice was clear. Robot Beta has successfully installed Dampener 3, Santos reported, beginning work on the final unit now. Above them, the enemy formation continued its deadly dance. Sarah could hear their engines through the water, a constant reminder that 43 lives hung in the balance of the next few minutes. She thought about her crew, many of whom had families waiting at home. She thought about Dr. Webb's research and what it could mean for submarine warfare in the future. Most of all, she thought about the promise she had made to the Admiral to complete this mission no matter what. Captain, Dr. Webb said suddenly, there's something else you should know about the research I'm carrying. Sarah turned to him with raised eyebrows. Something you haven't mentioned? The stealth enhancement I'm installing is just the beginning. The full research data contains specifications for a completely new type of submarine propulsion system. Silent, efficient, and virtually undetectable. If this data reaches our naval development teams, it could make our entire submarine fleet invisible to enemy detection. The implications were staggering. Sarah realized they weren't just carrying valuable research. They were transporting technology that could change the balance of naval power worldwide. No wonder the enemy was so determined to stop them. That makes our success even more critical, she said. Robot Alpha and Beta have completed installation, Chief Santos announced. All dampeners are in place and showing green status lights. Dr. Webb moved quickly to his control console, his fingers dancing across the keyboard as he activated his revolutionary system. Initializing resonance field, calibrating frequency modulators, integrating with existing stealth systems. The submarine seemed to hold its breath as various systems came online. Sarah could feel a subtle change in the electromagnetic environment around them, like the moment before a thunderstorm when the air itself seems charged with potential. Field generation at 20%, 40%, 60%. Dr. Webb called out the progress as his system powered up. Enemy contacts are maintaining search pattern, reported the sonar operator. They don't appear to have detected our robots or the installation process. At 80% power, something unexpected happened. The enemy sonar pings suddenly became erratic, their regular rhythm replaced by confused sweeps in multiple directions. "They're losing us," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez in amazement. "Field generation at 100%, Dr. Webb announced. Stealth enhancement is fully active. Captain, as far as their sensors are concerned, we just vanished." Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but she knew the real test was yet to come. "Recall the robots," she ordered. "Prepare to change course. We're going to see if this miracle of yours really works." The maintenance robots detached from the hull and returned to their storage bays while Sarah planned their next move. The original plan had been to reach friendly waters where naval protection awaited them, but that route was now blocked by enemy forces. Instead, she decided to take a more daring approach. "We're going to pass directly beneath their fleet," she announced to her crew. The control room fell silent. Even with the stealth enhancement, passing directly under enemy ships was incredibly risky. If the technology failed, or if they were detected by visual means, they would be sitting ducks. "Captain," Commander Rodriguez said carefully, "are you certain about this course of action?" "It's the last thing they'll expect," Sarah replied. "They know we've been running from them for 3 days. They'll never imagine we'd sail right underneath them." Dr. Webb nodded in agreement. "The enhancement should mask us completely at close range. In fact, the closer we are to their hulls, the more interference their own systems will create." Sarah gave the order to change course, and the Titanica began to rise slowly from the depths. As they ascended, the enemy ships grew larger on their sonar display, their massive hulls creating dark shadows against the lighter water above. "Steady as she goes," Sarah murmured, watching their approach with intense concentration. At 400 feet depth, they passed directly beneath the first enemy vessel. Sarah could hear the rumble of its engines directly overhead, so close that it seemed they could reach up and touch the ship's keel. But their sonar screen remained clear of any alarm signals. "No change in enemy search pattern," reported the sonar operator. "They're still sweeping areas to our west." The Titanica ghosted beneath the second ship, then the third, moving like a phantom through water that should have been swarming with detection equipment. Dr. Webb's enhancement was working perfectly, bending electromagnetic waves around their hull and creating a pocket of invisible ocean where the submarine traveled. "We're clear of the main formation," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced as they passed beyond the enemy fleet. But Sarah wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "Maintain stealth mode and continue on course," she ordered. "We're not safe until we reach friendly waters." As the Titanica slipped away from its hunters, Dr. Webb's revolutionary technology had proven itself under the most demanding conditions possible. But the mission was far from over, and Sarah knew that their enemies wouldn't give up easily. When they realized their prey had escaped, they would mobilize every available resource to recapture the submarine and its precious cargo. The real test of their innovation was just beginning. 6 hours after their miraculous escape from the enemy fleet, Captain Sarah Chun stood in the control room of the USS Titanica, watching her sonar operator track multiple new contacts approaching from the northeast. The enemy had discovered their escape and was now mobilizing everything they had to recapture the submarine and its revolutionary cargo. 12 vessels approaching in attack formation, reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "They're moving fast and coordinating their search pattern to cover maximum ocean area." Dr. Webb looked up from his monitoring station with concern etched across his face. Captain, the stealth enhancement is beginning to fluctuate. We've been running at maximum power for too long. The system needs time to cool down and recalibrate. Sarah felt her heart sink. The technology that had saved them once was now reaching its limits just when they needed it most. How long before it fails completely? Maybe 2 hours, Dr. Webb replied grimly. After that, we'll be visible to their sensors again. Chief Santos studied her navigation charts carefully. We're still 18 hours from friendly waters at maximum speed. Even if we push the reactors to emergency levels, we can't outrun 12 enemy ships. Sarah looked around the control room at her crew. Despite the dire situation, she saw determination in every face. These men and women had already proven they wouldn't surrender easily, and they weren't about to start now. Dr. Webb, she said suddenly, you mentioned that your research contained specifications for a new propulsion system. Can any of that technology help us now? The physicist shook his head slowly. The propulsion research requires completely different submarine designs. It would take years to implement. But he paused, his eyes brightening with sudden inspiration. There might be something else we can do. Tell me, Sarah urged. The resonance dampeners we installed, they're designed to disrupt electromagnetic signals. But if we reverse their polarity and amplify their output, we could create an electromagnetic pulse that would temporarily disable enemy electronics. Lieutenant Rodriguez frowned. Wouldn't that affect our systems too? Yes, but we could shield our critical systems beforehand. The enemy wouldn't have that luxury. For approximately 30 minutes, their sonar, communications, and targeting systems would be completely offline. Sarah considered this option carefully. An electromagnetic pulse would indeed disable the enemy fleet temporarily, but it would also reveal their exact location. Once their electronics came back online, the enemy would know precisely where to find them. There's one more possibility, Dr. Webb continued. If we combine the EMP with a rapid ascent and emergency surface maneuver, we might be able to call for air support before they can react. That's incredibly risky, Chief Santos warned. Surfacing puts us in direct line of fire from every ship in that fleet. But if their targeting systems are offline, Sarah mused, they'd be firing blind for those crucial 30 minutes. She thought about her training, remembering countless simulations where conventional wisdom said to retreat and regroup. But this situation was far from conventional, and conventional tactics had already failed to save them. Sometimes the most audacious plan was the only one that could succeed. We're going to do it, she decided. Dr. Webb, begin preparations for electromagnetic pulse deployment. Chief Santos, calculate an optimal surfacing location. Rodriguez, prepare to send an emergency distress signal the moment we breach. As her crew sprang into action, Sarah reviewed their battle plan one final time. They would wait until the enemy fleet was at close range, then deploy the EMP to blind their systems. During the confusion that followed, the Titanica would perform an emergency surface maneuver and call for air support from friendly forces. The timing would have to be perfect. Surface too early, and the enemy would have time to target them manually. Surface too late, and their electronics would come back online before help could arrive. Enemy fleet is closing fast, reported the sonar operator. They'll be within weapons range in 15 minutes. Dr. Webb worked frantically at his console, modifying the resonance dampeners for their new purpose. I'm inverting the field generators now, he called out. This will create a massive electromagnetic discharge, but I can only guarantee one use. The dampeners will be completely burned out afterward. One use is all we need, Sarah replied confidently. Chief Santos had identified the optimal surfacing location, a position that would put them equidistant from multiple enemy ships, maximizing the EMP's effectiveness against the entire fleet. It was also dangerously exposed, with no cover or protection once they broke the surface. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from enemy vessels, the sonar operator announced urgently. They're preparing to fire torpedoes. Sarah realized their time had run out. Dr. Webb, Deploy the EMP now. The physicist slammed his hand down on the activation control, and the submarine's hull suddenly crackled with invisible electromagnetic energy. Throughout the ocean around them, electronic systems began to fail in a cascade of sparks and darkness. All enemy contacts have gone silent, reported the sonar operator. No engine noise, no sonar pings, nothing. Emergency surface. All ahead full, Sarah commanded. The Titanicus ballast tanks emptied rapidly as the submarine began its dramatic ascent toward the surface. Through the periscope monitor, Sarah watched as the dark water grew lighter, then, suddenly, exploded into brilliant sunlight as they breached. Around them, 12 enemy ships sat dead in the water, their crews frantically trying to restore power to disabled systems. Smoke rose from several vessels where the EMP had caused electrical fires, and confusion reigned as ships that had been coordinating perfectly moments before found themselves blind and unable to communicate. Transmitting emergency signal, announced Lieutenant Rodriguez. Friendly air support should receive our coordinates within 60 seconds. Sarah raised the periscope and surveyed their surroundings. The enemy fleet was beginning to recover, with some ships showing signs of restored power. They had perhaps 20 minutes before facing coordinated attack again. "Captain, we're receiving a response to our distress signal," Rodriguez reported excitedly. "Fighter squadron inbound. Estimated arrival 12 minutes. 12 minutes felt like an eternity as enemy ships gradually came back online. The first vessel to restore full power began turning toward the Titanica, its deck guns swiveling in their direction. "Dive! Take us down!" Sarah ordered, just as the first enemy shells splashed into the water where they had been floating moments before. The submarine slipped beneath the waves again, but this time they weren't running blindly. Air support was on the way, and their position was known to friendly forces. "Multiple aircraft approaching from the southwest," the sonar operator announced. Friendly IFF signals confirmed. Through the periscope, Sarah watched as 6 fighter jets screamed overhead, immediately engaging the enemy fleet with precision missiles and bombing runs. The ships that had been hunting them so relentlessly were now fighting for their own survival against a superior air attack. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation and withdrawing," Rodriguez reported. "Our aircraft are maintaining pursuit." Dr. Webb slumped against his console in exhaustion and relief. "Captain, I can't believe that actually worked." Sarah smiled for the first time in days. "Sometimes the most desperate situations call for the most innovative solutions. Doctor, your technology didn't just save this mission, it changed the way we think about submarine warfare." As the Titanica resumed course toward friendly waters under fighter escort, Sarah reflected on the lessons learned during their harrowing journey. They had faced overwhelming odds with outdated equipment against a technologically superior enemy, but innovation, courage, and teamwork had turned certain defeat into remarkable victory. 3 days later, the USS Titanica arrived safely at its destination, where Dr. Webb's research data was immediately transferred to the Naval Development Center. Within months, his stealth enhancement technology would be integrated into the entire submarine fleet, while his propulsion research would revolutionize underwater vessel design for decades to come. Captain Sarah Chun received the Navy Cross for her exceptional leadership during the mission, but she always insisted that the real heroes were her crew and the brilliant scientist whose innovation had saved them all. The enemy had thought they were finished, trapped with no way out. They discovered that sometimes when everyone thinks you're beaten, that's exactly when innovation and determination can turn the tables completely. The nuclear submarine USS Titanica had proven that with the right technology, the right crew, and the right captain, there was no trap that couldn't become an opportunity for victory. Years later, naval historians would study this mission as a perfect example of how technological innovation, combined with bold leadership and flawless execution, could overcome seemingly impossible odds. But for Sarah Chun and her crew, it would always be remembered as the day they proved that surrender was never an option, and that sometimes the most audacious plans were the ones that worked best. The ocean that had once seemed like their prison had become the stage for their greatest triumph, and the technology that saved them would protect countless other submarines in the dangerous waters of an uncertain world.